See you there. How we doing, everybody? Today we've got office hours every single Friday, about 10 o'clock Pacific. We do office hours. We talk about a different topic every single time. Hopefully this is helpful. If you have any questions, the whole point of this is that you can ask questions. I should be able to see across all the platforms if you do have any questions. If you're not one of our members already, if you're not part of our group, go ahead and join us at straighttalkacademy.com. We've got a whole community, training, all kinds of tools and resources, scripts, anything you'll need to get started in commercial real estate if you are new or you're looking at exploring commercial real estate yourself. So this week I have a obsession with the number 3. Okay, it keeps it simple, keeps everyone focused, and so what you'll find is if I have a rule or a test or something simple or a checklist, usually it's got 3 parts to it to keep it simple and easy to remember. One of the things that we do when we're looking at prospects or we get a referral that comes our way, is it worth our time? Are they going to be realistic? Are they going to be spinning our wheels? Are they going to be a big time suck? Right. And it's going to waste their time. It's going to waste our time. And if they're a referral, especially, which is a lot of the business that we receive, that can be damaging to the relationship too, right? If everyone spins out, everyone's going to get frustrated, and a lot of times those fingers will point at different directions, and it oftentimes ends up at the broker's feet when that happens. So let's avoid all that by having a good conversation to start with, and if it's not a fit, let's find that out before we spend a lot of time working with a prospect that could then end up in a situation where they might be frustrated having spent all that time. So we're going to focus today on a very simple 3-part rule on determining if someone is worth the time for both you and them and anyone referring them to you to pursue, or if maybe there's some prep work they have to do. You're going to help guide them in a direction that is going to help them. Okay, and that's not always going to be you helping them buy or sell or lease a property. They could have to do some steps ahead of time to get themselves in a position to do so, right? And if you're in residential, you know that as well. Someone wants to buy a house, but they haven't been pre-qualified. What are we even doing here? Let's get them in front of a lender. Let's get them going. Same kind of thing happens in commercial, but there's a couple more steps too. All right. Oh, I'm in the way here. Let's move me out of the way. So let's talk about that. Okay. Let's do the rule of 3. Now there's some do's and don'ts before we get started, right? We're gonna have 3 things in mind as we're sitting down and talking to a prospect. Okay, we're gonna vet them out to see if it's a good fit. We're gonna vet them out to build rapport. We're gonna vet them out. Oh, I've got a do that I didn't fill in there. We're gonna vet them out to see if this is something that's going to be worth both our time and their time. Okay, and when we're doing that, we're going to be building rapport, and we're going to be building up to a possible close. Right? We're not here for fun. We're here for business, and if we think we can help them, if they think we can help them, especially, then we're going to close them, and we're going to get off and running. Right? We're not just going to sit down and have some coffee and shoot the breeze for a couple hours. We need to focus. Your time is valuable. There's only so much time in the day. So when you're vetting someone out, I'm a big fan of Jeremy Miner's. It's at NEPQ. It's basically emotional questions that drive someone to build rapport and be comfortable with you. And so when we're doing that and we're vetting someone out, it's very easy for me, especially with the engineer brain, to fall in a certain way of looking at something is more of like just a mechanical parts. But people make decisions based on emotion, not on logic. So when you're sitting down and asking them these questions, you're not going to be doing a few things. You're not going to tell them the way it is. You're not going to tell them what they should be doing. You're not going to teach them. They may ask questions, and I would oftentimes throw that back at them. Well, what does that mean? What do you think about this? You're going to try and ask open-ended questions, but you're not going to teach them. You're not going to tell them. You're not going to use logic. If A and B, then therefore you should be doing C, right? That's not going to move the needle a whole lot for most people. Most people are going to be using emotion, okay? You're not going to be asking yes or no questions. Okay. And you've probably heard this before. If you've taken any sales training at all, you're not going to ask those ended questions. You're not going to wander around and let the conversation go all over the place. You're going to try and direct us. You're the tour guide. They're hopefully going to be the driver through your questions. You're going to be the tour guide that's going to take you on a journey to the destination that helps them out, right? So just keep that in mind as we're going through these three R's, as it were. And what you are going to be doing is asking lots of questions. Try and ask more questions, more probing questions. Be genuinely interested in the prospect. And they're going to tell you what they need to hear. They're going to tell you what they want through those open-ended questions. Okay, guided by the three R's, by the way. We're going to determine the answers to these three R's by asking those questions, by asking follow-up questions. So you're actually going to be listening. This isn't, how soon can I get them to sign my listing agreement? This is, what can I do to help them? What do they need? What do they actually need, right? Because they're going to tell you one thing, and then you need to dig deeper to find out what they actually do need, right? And then following the NEPQ method from Jeremy Miner, if you haven't gotten into any of their stuff, I recommend you do so. Very cool. Ask emotional questions. How does that make you feel? What would happen in a year if we didn't do anything? How would things change? I guess things would change, stay the same. Find those pain points, explore the pain points, ask them how that makes them feel. Ask them, what we could do to fix that and how that would make them feel, right? And again, that destination, we're going from here. We're going to go to a listing if appropriate. We're going to start here. We're going to determine exactly what they need to buy, when, and how. And then we're going to get going and doing that. Okay. We're going somewhere. Okay. Like at the bottom there, I say, you're a guide. They're driving. Hopefully they're driving through a lot of the questions you're asking. They're telling you where they're going and where they should go. You're going to guide them through that to exactly where they need to go. And through all of that, you're not just vetting them, right? You're not just determining if they pass the 3R test. You're building rapport by asking those questions, right? And you're moving them to make a decision on their own on what they want to do. It's not going to be you telling them what to do. They're going to be the ones who make the decision. Okay. So now, what are the 3Rs? Yeah. Well, that was supposed to be bolded. Down bottom there, requirements, readiness, and realistic or realism. And you pose that as a question, like what are their requirements? How specific are their requirements? Are they ready? How ready are they? Are they realistic? Okay, we're doing questions. Okay, so that first question of those 3Rs, and these are going to be in your head as we're going down and vetting them out. You're going to be asking them questions and seeing if they check off these boxes. And the way you're gauging it is how specific and clearly and realistically are they checking off these boxes. So when I say, do they have clear requirements, or what are their requirements, there's a lot that could mean. Oh, I think I cut out there. There's a lot that could mean as far as the requirements go. Is it an owner user? Is it an investor? Are they in an exchange? There's a lot of different questions. So what you want to do when you're asking about the requirements is simply ask them, what are you looking to do in the commercial real estate space? Okay, they're going to tell you. Okay, I've got this warehouse space. I've got a lot of inventory. We're running out of room. We need more power. We need more this. I need more office space for my admin. Okay. So it sounds like you're growing a bit. What kind of space requirements are you finding that are really restricting you, right? So you're going to ask those pain points. What is the problem? Dig in on the problem. Find exactly what is the issue with the problem. Because then you're going to be able to help them find an answer better. Okay. So it's space requirements, location requirements. Do they need to be near the freeway? What is the distance from the freeway that's okay? What kind of surface streets? What kind of yard space? users are going to have certain requirements. Investors are going to have certain requirements, quality of tenant, all this stuff. But the more specific they can be about what requirements they have, the better you can help them, and the better you can determine how high up on that that quality meter they are. Because if they say, well, I want to, I've got some money, I'd like to find a multifamily property, and I just want a good deal. Well, they don't really know what they want, do they? Right. So if you bring them a deal and that's their requirement, does that fit their requirement? Right. Is there any way to possibly put any property that you put in front of them and have it fit that mold? Well, no, nothing's going to fit that. So you're going to bring them something and they're going to say, well, no, it's not whatever. It's not, it's 8% return. Well, is that even realistic, right? So that's another R requirement. So the more specific they can be, the more you can determine if they fit your requirements, but also the more you can determine, can I find something like that? How much of that one, those things are out there that fit those requirements. And you will be able to check that box off, right? So if I found you, X amount of square foot, we need this amount of office space, and it was within X amount of, from the freeway, would that be something you would want to close on right now, right? Give them an example, and then so make sure they can check off those boxes, and if you were to bring something to them, could we determine if it fits within their neat requirements or doesn't? And if we don't know, then we need to drill down and get more specific. And if they can't be more specific, then maybe they need to do like we were talking about. Maybe they need to go back to the drawing board and find out what exactly do they want, because that's going to be wasting your time and their time if they can't determine exactly what they want for their property. Sip of coffee. All right. That's requirements. Okay. And all of these will kind of intertwine. These are the three things you're going to have in mind as you're asking your questions, right? So requirements might bleed into how realistic they are or how ready they are, right? So they need more space. Well, okay, what if I found that for you now, today? Could we close on it tomorrow? Well, no, I'm not pre-qualified. Okay, well, let's talk about that. What do you have on hand? What kind of money are you going to bring to the table? What does your capital look like to make something like this happen? Okay. They can tell you, and they can tell you exactly where they're at on their pre-approval process. Do they have cash? Do they have money they have to move around? Sometimes in commercial, they have money that's out of country that has to be moved in country, right? And that involves different levers that have to be pulled and pushed and to move it over. It depends on, is it liquid or not, right? Is it in stocks? Is it in some sort of investment account that has to go through certain levers in order to be freed without some sort of big expense, right? If they own property and they have a loan on it, are there any prepayment penalties, right? Oftentimes with multifamily and other commercial properties, if someone, places a loan on a property, they want it to stay there for a certain amount of time. There's going to be some sort of prepayment penalty if we sell it within a year or two, right? So these are questions you're going to be asking, and they're going to be telling you, and you're going to ask follow-up questions depending on their answers. Okay. And you're going to determine, are they, really, hey, if we found all of these things in your requirement tomorrow, could you close it? How quickly can we close it? Okay. And they'll tell you why or why not. And decision making is another thing too, right? So you might be talking to a spouse who also needs the other spouse, or a partner who needs the other partners there to sign off on it. And the other partners might not want to sell right now. And so that would be another question: is there anyone else that we should involve in this conversation who's going to be making the decisions with you? Or are you going to be able to make that decision? If we decide to make a move when we meet, can we make a move with just you saying yes? Okay. And they'll tell you, right? So that's another thing that we're going to be wanting to vet out before we meet with them is, do we have all the decision makers, or are we wasting our time with, a third of the, decision makers for the property? Okay. Now, Another thing I run up against, especially if it is a referral, because they haven't been vetted out very well. Usually, a lot of times, someone will sell I deal with a lot of residential agents who do a referral over to commercial, and what they'll do is they'll sell a house to someone, and they happen to, through conversation, find out that person has a commercial need or desire. And so they then quickly say, "Oh, great, great, great. Yeah, let's talk to my commercial guy. I'll hand them off to you." And they're not realistic. They're not ready. They don't really know what requirements they have. They just got an idea, like, "Hey, yeah, I'd like to open a cafe that does A or B and C." Right. So I had this the other day. I had someone brought to me who wants to open, a cafe that helps with, childcare a little bit, right? So somewhere for you to go, relax a little bit, kids can play, um, get some work done, and have some coffee. These things exist. They don't really have a business plan. They haven't talked to the SBA or had any conversations with the lender that can pre-qualify them. So these are some things that we're thinking about where they have an idea, but they're not really realistic. They're not ready. They don't really have the requirements drilled down. So through that conversation, for that example, I was able to give them some to-do lists, right? So they're not, we're not going to spend our time shopping around for a property when you're not pre-qualified. You don't have a full business plan, which is going to be necessary if you're going to talk to the SBA and you don't have a business. You need your business plan, right? So here's your to-do list. Go do your to-do list. Let me know if I can help. And then when you're done, then we're going to start shopping, right? So they might stay on my radar, something like that. But through doing the 3R test, I've determined the different things that they're weak on that we can then give them a to-do list and they can go off and drill those down, right? Now, realistic is more of aligning, their expectations with reality or the market. Okay, so they might come to you and say, and oftentimes they will. They'll say, "Hey, I've got, I got a couple apartment buildings. I'd like to buy some more. Just bring me a good deal." Well, what does that mean? What exactly does that mean? Where do you think the market's at right now? What kind of cap rate are you thinking would be reasonable? Well, a 10% return. Okay, great. So if I brought you an offer on your apartment for a 7% return, which it would be well above market, right? Would you want it? Would you be willing to make that trade? Okay, so see how I'm asking someone who owns property if their expectations of the market aligns with their properties, right? So they're going to say, "Well, no, I would want much more than that." Well, you see where that might be a problem. Do you think another owner would be willing to take a 10%, return, or do you think they would probably expect a little bit more, just like you? They can tell you. So bringing them down to reality, and sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. And from there, I can determine, do we want to spend some more time just kind of exploring this, or do we want to just cut it loose for now, right? And again, these people might stay on my radar. Someone who owns some property, someone who wants to buy some more, I might put them on my buyer list, right? And then I might keep checking in with them. Okay, so as a commercial broker, that's part of what we're doing is we're vetting people out. If they're not ready right now, oftentimes they're not. We are adding them to our database and making sure we call them on a regular basis, because guess what? They might not be ready now. They might have really wild expectations right now, but they're going to, instead of you doing it, someone else or they themselves are going to get beat up by the market until they are ready to hit the market expectations. Okay. And at that point, you should be there ready to go when they are starting to be more realistic. And that's not just return. So this could be something too with our example of someone who needs more space, right? They need more warehouse space. They need more office space. And perhaps it's not aligned with, the type of properties that you have in your area, right? You might not have, some flex space, which, over 30% of the building is built out as office as opposed to warehouse. That'd be considered flex space. Perhaps you just don't have that. And so what would have to happen is they'd have to build a brand new building to fit their needs. Okay. So when you bring that up, are they going to be willing to do that? Or are they going to reset some of their expectations more in line with the market? What's going to happen there? Okay. So what you could say is like, look, I'll see what I can find. What I do know is the market doesn't have a lot of inventory like that. It'd be very difficult to find. If I found something that was A or B or C, which would be more in line with the market, would you be willing to take a look at that instead? Or do we actually need this very specific need met? Okay. And I'll tell you. So, and again, we're asking questions, we're asking follow-up questions. We're keeping in mind these 3 R's. Are they realistic? Are ready? What are their requirements? Okay. What do they need? Are they ready to get what they need? And are they realistic with what price or effort that will mean for them? And if all that's in alignment, or if you can reset their expectations to be, what you think would be in line with the market, then we can move on to closing them out. So cool. So they passed our test. We're then ready to say, look, okay, so here's how I work. I think we can help you. And I'll show you here. I use the rule of 3. Like I said, I like numbers 3, the number 3. I'll show you what this means, but we're going to do this. We're going to close it. They passed our test. We're going to say, great, here's our next steps. I'm going to get a listing agreement drawn up. Is A and B and C okay, right? So here's the price, we're expecting, or we're going to decide on a price. And if the market doesn't agree with that, then I need your commitment right now that we're going to meet the market after 30 days, because otherwise we go stale. Have that conversation. They say yes, yes to the commission, yes to the price, yes to the expectations. Cool. So we're setting a commitment, we're setting timelines for these commitments, and we're setting an expectation of documenting that and getting our commission agreement signed. They say yes to all. Say, cool, I'll have that to you on A or B or C. Ideally, you'd have that with you. Here's how I work, Mr. and Mrs. Owner. I use what's called the rule of 3. Okay. At no point are we, if we're buying stuff, at no point are we going to look at or have any more than 3 properties on our radar. Likewise, if we're going to sell, we're not going to sell any more than 3 properties at a given time. Okay. Anything else can wait till later. We're going to focus on selling 3 of your properties. And you can determine if that's too much work or not, but don't ever do more than 3. And if we're looking for property, we're going to look at no more than 3 properties at a time. Okay, and here's what happens, though. I deal with agents who have buyers. They show them property A. Number one, the client's not vetted. So they say, well, that's not a good deal because they didn't drill their criteria down. So that goes to the maybe pile, right? You bring them another one. Well, not a good deal. Okay, well, what does that mean? Well, I want a higher return. Okay, well, that's not really realistic for downtown. So you haven't vetted them out. So that goes to the maybe pile. And then that happens 5 more times. And so your maybe pile is now 7 big. You haven't made any offers, and you don't remember what number 3 was, the third one that came across, the 5th one that came across. Everything blends together. Everyone's got snow blindness, and nothing gets done. You just spend a bunch of time wasting everyone else's time. So instead, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, buyer, I do 3 properties at a time. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you 3 properties. I'm going to give you all the pros and cons, all the things we talked about today that are important to you. And you're going to tell me what you don't like about each and every one of those. I want to know exactly what you don't like about each of those and why you're saying no, because I want you to say no so I can go find you something better. Okay. And what that does is that's going to force them to not just take the criteria or the requirements that they gave you, but they're going to have to really hone that in, because they have to tell you what they don't like about it. And if there's nothing they don't like about it, then we're offering them. Why aren't we offering on it? They can't be ambiguous at that point. They have to be specific. So here's your 3 properties. We're always going to keep 3 in front of us. We're not doing 4. So there's 3 until they're disqualified, right? So one of those 3 might be offered on a letter of intent, and that's off and going. The other 2, you might have disqualified for various reasons. But at that point, we're still going to pursue the one we've got a letter of intent on, but we're going to keep cycling through another 2 properties. We're not going to have another 3 with our letter of intent out there. We're just going to have 3 total. So one's under letter of intent now. And then we've got 2 others that are floating out there, and we're DQing them, and or we're offering on this second one now, and we've just got another 1 floating out there that's cycling through and getting disqualified, right? So, but we're doing 3, and that's it. Okay. It's going to focus them. It's going to get everyone on the same page. No one's got snow blindness, and we are going to offer on something. and move that toward close. Okay. Likewise, 3 offers, whether you're making them or receiving them, 3 offers aligns with the rule of 3. So if you've got 3 offers out, you're not looking at any more properties until those get turned down, right? Or accepted. Okay. If you're selling a property or properties, you're not going to look at any more than 3 offers. You're going to collect them. You're going to highest and best. You're going to drill that down to the top 3. And then that's what you're going to spend your time on negotiating with. Okay. Whether it's leases, okay. Top 3 leases, you're going to keep them all on your list, but you're going to negotiate with 3 people until one of them fits that space. Okay. And then the other 2 could go do something else within your center, or maybe you can go find them some stuff, but you're not going to do more than 3 at a time. Active clients, we're only dealing with 3 active clients at a time. Okay. No more. If you have more than, now I don't mean people on your buyer list or clients who might want to sell sometime soon. I'm talking about you have 3 people who you are working on their listing for, and you're working through getting that up and then at market and sold. Okay. If you have more than 3 of those, you better have a team of at least 2 people, junior agents dealing with all the minutia and the clientele and all that, and then your admin dealing with admin and helping you with marketing and all that stuff. If you don't have a team of people under you working for you, you don't have more than 3 clients, because if you do, you're not giving them the amount of time they deserve, or you've priced things incorrectly, right? So if you have a bunch of listings that are just stagnant sitting there, you're not doing your clients any services by just letting them sit there. You need to go and talk to them, get them down to reality, or cut them loose. Okay. It does no one any favors to let properties sit around. Okay. Or buyers sit around. You get 3 active buyers that you're actively doing the 3 properties with. That's fine. If you have 4 or 5, you're not giving them the amount of time they deserve unless you have a team helping you out with that. And each of them, guess what? Each of your team members get, your junior agents get to have maximum 3. They have to abide by the rule of 3 too. So if they're not, or you've got too much volume, guess what? Now you have to go get another junior agent. Okay. Guess how many junior agents you should have before you start to expand again? Yes, 3. Keep it at 3. Keeps it simple, keeps it easy. That is, let's see here. Just checking my comments. I don't see any questions. That's all I wanted to talk about today is my rule of 3, both with our clients once we have a client, and how to vet clients out. Okay. Using emotional questions to find the 3 R's. Do they have clear requirements? Are they ready? And are they realistic? If all of that is in line with what you think the reality in the market is, and they're clear enough where if you brought them something, it could check off the boxes where you have to offer on it. Now we're in a situation where we're going to close them out, get a commitment, set expectations, get the documentation signed, and move on to this stage, which is getting them closed. Okay, helping them out. But if they're not in alignment, if we're not hitting those 3 R's, that's fine. Like I said, I just had a client this week that did not fit these requirements. Actually 2. Got a big church in Texas that I talked to, or I'm talking to someone about possibly referring. And then we had the cafe as well. Didn't work out. Okay. The church probably not going to work out. So they might have to adjust their pricing expectations. And then the cafe people have their to-do list. Okay. You can still help people without brokering for them. Okay. I can still help them without being their broker right now. When they're ready, then I'll broker for them. Okay. But it doesn't help them for us all to be spinning our wheels and looking at all these properties when they're not ready to close on. Okay. So those are the 3 R's. If you have any questions now, or if you're watching this later, if you have any questions, put them in the comments. We're happy to answer them. That's what we're here for. If you're not part of the group or the community, join at straighttalkacademy.com. It's a monthly fee. You quit whenever you want to. There's just an intimidating amount of training. And then we've got it in different sections, right? So we have a section for the basics of commercial real estate. If you want to learn commercial real estate, introduction to commercial real estate, retail, office, multifamily, and then lead generation marketing, a whole 8-week course on that. We've got a whole 6-part, 3-week course on making $30,000 an hour off of referrals off your current book of business. You have a class on that. We've got a cheat sheet class on all the different terminology and everything you need to know about commercial real estate as far as terminology goes, letters of intent classes. And then, of course, we do weekly office hours like this where you get to ask us questions live. You have access to a commercial broker every single week, whenever you want, to answer your commercial questions. Also, with the community, you can ask questions in there. We can answer you there. Tim, I have a question from Tim. Are you signing a contract for a buyer only? You're going to sign a contract, whether it's a buyer or a seller. You're going to sign a listing agreement or a commission agreement, okay? And when I'm dealing with commission agreements, and, this conversation, I'm going to tell them, I'm not going to hold your feet to the fire. If this isn't working out, it doesn't make sense for either of us to spend a bunch of time having to work with each other, but I need your commitment. My fee is X up to, my fee is, 3% up to 5 million. If it's above 5 million, we can start talking about a cap. But I typically deal in the 1 to 5 million range. And it's because I typically deal with multifamily owners trading into net lease properties, which is where those properties typically sit price wise. Most of the time, the owner is going to be paying my commission. If the owner is not going to be paying my commission, Mr. Buyer, Mrs. Buyer, we'll know far ahead of time and we can adjust our pricing or our offer accordingly. Okay. Because at the end of the day, the seller has a net price that they're willing to take. They have either buffered that price with whatever they're going to pay a commission for, in which case you have no say in that, or they have not. Okay. But they're willing to take a certain price. The buyer's at the end of the day paying the commission, whether you have a say in it or not. I'm telling you that we will have a say in it. And oftentimes we'll have the seller pay for that. But if they're not going to, then this is my fee. And if that's okay with you, we'll make sure it works for both of us if the time comes. Yeah. So Tim's one of our members. So Tim, the buyer broker agreement, pretty standardized. You can see that we've got the letter of intent in there. Any contract that you're going to sign, I would do if it's an AIR form, would be a good boilerplate just to keep in mind. But we're not going to give you guys actual contracts. We'll give you something with it's got a watermark for sample slapped across the front of it. I'm not an attorney. I can't approve any contracts for you guys. Your broker has to do that. We can do stuff where we've got letter of intent templates that you guys can take and make your own. Again, your broker has to approve that as well. Buyer broker, same thing. I think we've got a sample of that in our portal, but you're going to have your broker approve any or all of that before you use any of that. Okay. And if you are one of our members, look for the upgrades that we're launching here. We actually have a whole set of lead magnets that we've created so that you can, if you wanted to, you can actually automate the commercial prospecting process pretty much entirely for you. All you have to do is share links to cool things. Like this training would be a cool thing for a residential agent. We've got cool training like this for commercial owners that you have access to, where you just have a magic link that you share with them, whether it's on social media or email or directly via text, whatever you guys want to do. And we track everything. We follow up. We push it toward a closing. And then if it does close or it goes to a listing, you can decide if you want to be involved or not. Very cool. Everything's done for you. So for now, we're allowing all of our members to have access to that. Eventually, anyone who's not signed up will have to pay extra. You guys won't have to for now because you're helping me test it out. So just look for that as an upgrade. If you haven't signed up yet, I would recommend you do so. I have 10:36 my time. We have been talking for a while, or I've been talking for a while. I'm going to get another cup of coffee. I will be right back. If you have any questions, let me know. Ask them in the chat box. I promise I won't put everything up on the screen here. I just think that's cool with the software I have. I'll be right back. My copy. Here's another thing, actually. If you're not one of our members and you don't want to sign up, you can. I think this is the one. We have a toolkit that talks about closing your first commercial real estate deal. So I think this is the one that's hooked up to that. If not, it's hooked up to the $30,000 an hour training. If you see the $30,000 an hour training, make sure you do Alliance as the code, and it should drop it to $1. It's not 2,000; it'll be $1 for you guys. But we have a toolkit where it's got the training for closing your first commercial real estate deal. It's got an ebook about the top 7 mistakes agents make when they try to close their first commercial deal. And then the toolkit also has a calculator that I use at every listing appointment that auto calculates and compares someone's property against the market. And we used to have like a 50-page broker opinion of value that we would bring with us. And now I basically bring a cover letter and the comps. And then I bring this calculator and we play with it, and they get to see and play around with what they could trade into, because the question isn't, how much return can I get from my property? Oftentimes the question can be refocused to, well, my net income is X. How do I replace X while also getting rid of a lot of my management needs or my ownership needs or the pain points that I have? Well, we can trade out of your property and into this, in my case, often fast food, and all of your responsibilities go out the window. You collect rent, you go on vacation, and your net income remains the same or gets higher. And the guarantee now is not just your apartment. It's now, an 80-unit operator who's worth $200 million is your guarantee for the next 20 years. Oftentimes, especially here in California, very easy trade, especially if someone's retiring. So if you go to the cretoolkit.com, we should give you that whole toolkit and then the calculator there, if you have an interest. I think that's a freebie if you're not signed up. But I recommend you join us at Straight Talk Accounting. So 10:40 my time. I don't see any other questions. If you guys do have questions, if you have something you want to talk about next week, let us know. We don't always stream out to everywhere. Usually it's just our group. So if you want to see these every week, let me know. And we'll cover whatever topic you want. We'll talk later.